Hey guys, my Grandmaster coach, upon seeing this game, told me that this is probably the best game by me that he has ever seen. While he hasn't seen all the games that I've played, especially on Online Blitz, I do think that this is one of the best ever for me. I've sacrificed almost all my pieces here. And this is a great feeling. I'm still riding this wave and I want to share this one with you. This is like, I know it's not humble to boast, but this is a real masterpiece, guys. Check it out. You will not be disappointed. I also played at like 93% accuracy and made 3 brilliant moves according to chess.com's engine. So in this round, I'm playing Asilhan Kumar, who's my subscriber, by the way. Cheers to him. And he's lower rated, but up until that moment in the tournament, he was the sole leader, having 6 out of 6 points with a rating performance of 2350 something. So he has been on a roll like Carissa Yip or Fabio Fischer, and I needed to stop him because I'm on 4.5 out of 6 and I need to win this to be in contention for the first place, which I really wanted to do. And I knew that he is going to prepare for me. He's my subscriber, like many guys and girls here in Almaty, and he knows my online accounts, and he told me after the game that he prepared for my French defense, of course, so I needed to surprise him, and I chose for the first time ever in my OTB classical career, I chose the modern defense. A very risky, a dubious opening for classical. Use it with caution, but I needed to play for a win. If I played the French, like as usual, he would be very fine with a draw, and he could have traded into an exchange French, for example, and it's very difficult to play for a win with black in such a position, especially if your opponent is very strong. And Asilhan is indeed very, very strong. So I played g6 and I looked him in the eye after playing g6, and he was disappointed visibly because his prep was not like it was a waste of time. So he went d4, bishop g7, I go d6 and a6. This is the theoretical position of the modern defense. Well, there is a way to play this with knight f6, but then this is called the Pirc defense, and this is already modern defense. So there are pros and cons of delaying the development of this knight. Beginners don't play like this because I'm not getting developed too fast. This is the only piece that is active, the bishop. White has a huge lead in development. White has a dominant control of the center, but there is a point in doing what I did. Actually, Hikaru likes to play this in Blitz, so I've drawn some inspiration from his games. b5 is also standard, and now bishop b7. So I'm developing my bishops to control the center remotely. This is the idea of hyper modern openings, like the modern defense. So you don't take up the center with your pawns like the masters of the past used to say. You need to put your pawns in the center. Not really. Well, usually you do, but sometimes you can control the center remotely. And black here is relying on counterplay and on attack, which is exactly what happened in this game. So f3, standard move, strengthening the pawn chain to counteract my bishop. I go with my knight to d7. We develop, and the knight jumps here to jump on c4 and fork the queen and the bishop. And of course, this dark squared bishop of white is very important, and you should not give it up. So of course, my opponent prevents knight c4. Well, he doesn't, but if I go knight c4 here, he'll just take, and white has a great position. Yes, the b file is open, but white king is never in trouble in such positions. White has traded the bad light squared bishop, and I don't have the attack, and I'm underdeveloped. And yeah, white is already winning according to the engine if we look at the eval bar. So of course I don't go knight c4 here now that this square is controlled by the bishop. Instead, I thought briefly of going b4. So the idea is that if the knight drops back, then knight c4, again with same idea, knight a4 this square is taken, so knight b1 is a passive square for the knight. But unfortunately, after b4, there is knight d5. And I didn't like this for me. So of course I can take and double his pawns, but he has the two bishops and white is obviously much better. And I have no counterplay. So I decided against this. So instead of b4, I thought I should prevent this knight d5, and I went e6 to control the square. Very logical. He goes g4 trying to attack, and I go h6. This is a little bit of a subtlety, but in such positions you very often need to go h6 to prevent g5. And for example, if white continues attacking like this, h4, and let's just make some nonsensical move like, I don't know, queen c8, for example. If white goes h5, I go g5 and close the position like this. And if white goes g5, I go h5 and close the position like this. So this is the idea of the move h6 in such a position. So of course I wanted to go knight f6, but then g5 would be possible. The knight drops back, and white has a plan of pushing h4, h5 very fast. And I myself played such setups with white, and I know how dangerous for black they may be. So h6 is an important move here. h4 still comes, and now I decide to play for attack b4. Taking this knight, I already showed you this idea. Now the d5 square is taken, so the knight cannot jump forward, and it has to drop back. If it drops back here, then this diagonal is closed, and knight c4 happens, and I win the dark squared bishop because it's a fork. And I'm attacking without the dark squared bishop. White's position is very sus. So white has to go to b1, knight b1. White is still better. The engines really like white in such structures because white has an immense space advantage and also a lead in development. But I have made a concession, made my opponent make a concession, because the knight is not getting out anytime soon. It is much more passive. Now the b1 square is usually used for the king. Now by the king, now the king cannot go to b1. It's taken, so the king is potentially in the line of fire of my pieces, long range pieces. So I thought that it's a good thing, and also I wanted to sack this pawn. So this is the first sacrifice of the game. This is actually not approved by the engine. This is the only sacrifice that I did in this game that is not approved by the engine, but practically speaking, it's a good one, because I need to clear the b file for my attack, and I just develop my knight. I don't care that he will be able to take my pawn, and take my pawn he did. And it's actually approved by the engine. Taking the pawn is the best move for white. White is a pawn up. Well, the engine says I'm stupid, but we will see. So the idea of sacrificing this pawn is that it is a clearance sacrifice. Potentially the b file could be used by my heavier pieces to attack the enemy king. And a more deep concept, a deeper concept here is time. So it's very important to explain here. Let me stop for a second. I need time. If I defend this pawn, I waste another tempo moving pawns. And I allow, for example, d5, breaking in the center, because my king is still in the center. The opponent needs to break open the position and to destroy me. And already it's really uncomfortable, because yeah, like if I take, then the e file will open up and the knight will jump in via d5. It will get unpleasant for me very, very soon. Not to mention the fact that bishop b5 is annoying. So by moving the pawn from a6 to a5, I've given my opponent this beautiful square for the bishop. And I really didn't like it. And I thought, you know what? I'll give him this pawn. He'll take. And then I'll go here. And I've moved my knight 2 times to join the attack. Now I will prepare c5, opening up the position. This diagonal will open up. And I've read in a book by a master of the past, I don't remember who exactly said this, that a pawn is worth around 2 tempi. So that's exactly what I want, because my opponent wasted 1 tempo, and the queen here is really awkward. You know what the best move according to the engine is for white? Queen d2, back. So the same position as here, but my knight moved here, and the queen moved here and back. So this is the difference. But he didn't go queen d2. He went knight e2. He wanted to rotate his knight to g3, apparently. Not the best plan, I think. To drop back, make backwards moves in such a situation is not advisable. You should move forwards. I thought that he should push forward, like in some variations, maybe develop the bishop, then push maybe h5 or g5, something like that. But okay, knight e2 definitely is not a mistake. So I've won some time. And now I can implement my plan of attack. a5. Hitting this queen. It's awkward here. You see that it's getting hit by my first pawns and then pieces. Queen b3, a4. Again, winning time. Okay, queen b4 back. The problem here is that the queen cannot go here because, again, this is a fork. So, and queen c3 also doesn't look right. So queen b4. And now I'm going to go queen e7 because I want to push c5 and blow open this diagonal for my bishop. He goes knight f3. Actually, top engine choice. Wow, I didn't even consider this move. It blocks my a pawn and it somehow develops this knight because it was really bad. Maybe now it can jump in via b5. So yeah, an interesting choice. Here I castle first. And after knight g3, preparing the attack. The engine is crazy. You know what the engine recommends here? f5. But opening up position in front of your king is very risky. So the engine is not afraid, but as a human, I am afraid. Of course, I don't go f5. I need to push pawns on the other side of the board. I need to push c5, which is one of the best moves according to the engine. Of course, the idea is to open this diagonal because this bishop will become a monster if it opens up. Takes, and already I've equalized. Even though I'm down a pawn, the engine already says that it's equal only if white finds precise moves. If white doesn't find the most precise moves, black will be much better. So yeah, it's very dangerous. Of course, he's not forced to take. He shouldn't help me opening this diagonal, so he draws back to d2. And he also attacks this pawn 2 times with the battery, so I have to defend it. He goes c3, strengthening the center, and I go d5. I need to create some chaos, to create some threats. And also, I needed to block the d file, because otherwise there are already, if I do nothing, ideas for him to take here and to go queen d6, for example, and trade the queens. He's up a pawn. He has a dominant position in terms of space. So I don't want this to happen. So I go d5. Now, if he takes, I'll just take by the knight, and it's all great for me. Also, I want to use my light squared bishop to break his pawn chain there. This is a multi-purpose move, d5. And this is the moment where fireworks begin. So you are going to enjoy this. So the best moves here are either bishop d3 or h5, continuing the attack for him. But the temptation is strong to go e5, blocking this bishop and seemingly blocking this one. But it's a mistake. And already black is better. Why? Because I take. If he takes by the bishop, which is actually already the engine choice to give up this pawn, I take this pawn. And this pawn is an important one. And my knights are jumping, and I've regained a pawn, and I'm much better. And I'm still attacking. So bishop takes d4 is not a move that a human would think of. Even c takes d4 is more automatic, but then I check him, my rook joins the action, and the knight joins the action. And this is just a marvelous position, because practically all my pieces, well, not all, but maybe later you will see, but many of my pieces are eyeing black's position and white's position, I mean, white's king in particular. And light squared bishop and rook of white on the king side are still not developed, are still on their original positions. So this is a problem for white, and it's not easy to make a move here. For example, if white takes here, I take, I open up this diagonal, I'm much better, c3 is coming, and already it's, practically speaking, it's very difficult to defend this. My opponent does not want to take like this or like this to help me activate yet another piece, light squared bishop. So he goes queen d3, and this is where the sacrifices begin. So first, I sacrifice the knight. Knight takes b2 is a removal of a defender. So he has to take, of course. Now I check him. He drops back, only move. And now rook c3 is a fork, double attack on the queen and the knight. He has queen b1, and he probably was relying on the fact that I just take the knight and he has bishop c1. It's still very big advantage for black. Black is attacking, but white is holding on at least. But I'm not taking this knight. Instead, I sacrifice the rook. Rook b3. My opponent was stunned by this move. My coach also liked it very much. So this is another sacrifice. I've sacked a pawn, a knight, now comes a rook. Instead of taking his knight, I sack yet another piece of mine. So he has to take. And what I achieved by sacrificing the rook was that I have cleared this file. So compare this position and this position. Now my a8 rook has joined the attack, and the king is feeling really vulnerable here. I'm threatening queen takes a3, which will be a checkmate. So I'm down a rook, a knight, and the pawn currently, but seven points of material. But my opponent cannot really make any move. So he has queen b2, I take with check. He goes here, I go rook a2. And the problem is, if he goes queen c1, drops back, many moves win here, but queen a5 probably is the easiest. I'm threatening rook a1 now, and if he does nothing, like, he doesn't really have any way to defend, but let's say he makes some move, h5. I check him, then there is a discovered check by the queen. Next I take his queen, and yeah, I have a completely crushing position. So he cannot allow that. After rook a2, he cannot drop back to c1 by the queen, but he has still a significant material advantage. So he just defends the queen, rook h2. If I take, he'll take back, and he will have two rooks for a queen. So material equality, even though I'm still attacking, so this is still winning for black, but this is not the most precise way. Instead of taking his queen, I decide to sacrifice yet another piece. I sacrifice the knight. Knight takes e5. Another brilliant move according to chess.com's engine. So rook b3 was a brilliant move, and knight takes b2 was also awarded double exclam by chess.com's engine. So the idea is that this is another clearance sacrifice, because once he takes, otherwise, if he doesn't take, then this knight will just join the attack and it will be over very soon. So he has to take. I take the queen with check, and then I take with the bishop. And this is another double attack. And also this bishop is like a real monster. It's dominating the position. So if I take this knight, then I'll be up in material, so he has to drop back to e2. And now I of course can take this rook, but my bishop is much stronger than this rook, so I go bishop a6. My bishops are going to jointly terrorize white's king. White's king is very vulnerable to attacks. Here I was calculating that he should probably go knight d4. The engine also approves, says that this is the top move, but still I'm completely winning. I can take, for example. If he takes with the rook, then queen e1, check will fork him and win material. So if he takes with a bishop, then I can take on f1. And if he takes here, I take here. And this is a completely winning endgame. Technically winning, even if he can take this pawn, but he cannot, because queen c4 is a double attack and he will lose one of those rooks. So this would be resignable already. White has two rooks against a queen, but they are helpless, and the pawns will march, and yeah, it will be over very soon. But this would have been best for him after bishop a6 to go knight d4. Instead, he went bishop d2. He was already in time trouble, and I checked him. If he goes here, queen a3 seals the deal. There is mate in 2, so he has to go here, and I check him on c4. And his only move is knight c3. And here anything wins. Bishop takes f1 wins, for example. But I decided to make my life easier and not to calculate any craziness, because I already had like 5 minutes on the clock and he had like 1 minute on the clock. So I just took the knight on c3. If he takes, I'll take, and it will be a checkmate. So he has to take on d3, but then I'll take on b2. He takes with the king, and I take on d3. And it's game over because queen c2 is coming, and he will lose either a rook or a bishop. And it's a hopelessly lost position. So he just went king c1, allowing me graciously to mate him on c2, and I checkmated my opponent. It's a great feeling to have played such a game. I've sacked, as you've seen, multiple pieces. I used multiple tactical motifs to get to my opponent's king. And it's very important for my tournament standings, because if Asulhan managed to make a draw in this game, then he would have been like unreachable for everyone. He would have 6.5 out of 7 points. I would have had 5 out of 7, so he would be able to draw the remaining 2 games and claim the first prize. Now that I've won, I have 5.5 out of 7. He has 6 out of 7, and tomorrow the last 2 games will be played, and I still have chances for the first prize, which I really want to get. So please drop a comment if you like this video, this game, and if you are rooting for me in this tournament, and see you in the next one. Bye bye.